Good evening, good afternoon, good morning. Mnangagwa, Emmerson Mnangagwa, is a corrupt, incompetent, and murderous tyrant who fought the liberation war as a mercenary. And so it's not surprising that after the war, he was convinced that Zanu-PF has the divine right to rule, as a right of conquest, to rule the country as it saw fit. And one can refer to many instances where he showed that again and again and again. But one of the times he showed that characteristic was during the 2008 electoral coup, in which it was clear Zanu-PF was losing. He stepped in and used the war veterans, the Zanu-PF militia, the country's police, army, CIO, to terrorize the nation, and carried out what was dubbed Operation Murapata, which was simply punishing the people for having dared to reject Zanu-PF in the March 2008 elections. Here is Mnangagwa himself boasting about his involvement in that electoral coup.
2008 padakaita ma-elections pakaposa papinda Tsvangirai ndandiri election agent ya president. Ma-results abuda tiri party headquarters vamutasa vanga vari secretary vedu ve-administration vamutasa muripi ndafona ndiri kwarusapi komogwenda kwarusapi seka ma-results achibuda kudai vanga aiwa zvako izvo Mnangagwa ndezvako endaenda kumusha ofisi vanga vabisa zvinhu zvavo zvose watofunga kuti zani yadini yaparara. President ofona zvakamira sei kati atomamira zvakaita takatodini kateda sei manje mama ndikati abvudzai baba nditaurira baba gadzirai politburo cabinet musarangarira zvimwe zvipi gadzirai chi cabinet. Asi nangoda kuti muzive kuti 2008 ma-results abuda vamutasa vakatiza.
As a country we face a generational transition. Vana vesa vari kuma below 35, they are crying out for help. The country is in a mess. Rufaro, we know we are inheriting a mess. We know this country has been left with nothing.
I'm assuring you that starting from tomorrow, you'll see a different nation from what you have seen or read on the news about these results and everything. Where we are going ahead there, the situation will be very different. What we said to our people, they could not see with their own eyes. We are going to act as we see it fit. We are prepared to go the whole distance.
During that year, the 3 months, the country was plunged into some of the worst violence relating to elections. Over 500 people were murdered. Hundreds of thousands were raped. or beaten up, and over 1 million were internally displaced. The sheer brutality that followed that year was so shocking that even SADC could not pretend those were free, fair, and credible elections, and hence denied Zanu-PF political legitimacy, which ended up with the regime signing the 2008 Global Political Agreement, giving birth to the GNU. It is a pity that the GNU, although it was a golden opportunity to implement reforms and end the Zanu-PF dictatorship, it was wasted. Mugabe bribed Morgan Tsvangirai and company, and the rest is history, as one would say. But let's go back to this story, what happened in 2008. Here is Chris Mutsvangwa trying to give a rational explanation, indeed even praising Mnangagwa for his role that year.
So 3 pillars. The first is the supremacy of the state. The second,
it's not the supremacy.
okay,
It is a strong state to
it's a
defend
strong
the supremacy of the people.
of the people.
Yes,
You need a
because
strong state.
state.
So the
Okay.
supremacy is with the people. Okay,
Yes, yes.
number one. Number two,
Number two, what distinguishes him is he's steeped in the history of this country.
so history.
History, the
Okay.
fact that we ran an African empire, sub-Saharan, which is second to none. We are the top. You
Okay.
just need to see what we have.
So, and the third,
The third now is the appeal to modernization, the respect of the way you attract capital in particular to material change the condition of the people. Because that is the departure from Mugabe. Mugabe and in
so modernism.
modernism.
So one of the things that one of the themes that I loved about the Second Republic when it came into being in November 2017 is this idea of being open for business. Okay,
That's your
fantastic.
slogan.
Yeah,
I remember I was the special advisor,
Mm.
and I went in, I reached out to Chris Katande, who is now the ambassador. He was the chief of staff of President in cabinet, and I said, Chris, what is made us so vulnerable was that we've got this beautiful asset, which is Zimbabwe, which appeals naturally to capital because it's a bonanza of riches, but it's starved of capital. So without capital, we cannot deliver all the goodies which people fought for, because people did not fight for a party. They did not fight for a flag. They did not fight for a leader. I wouldn't fight for a leader, because why would I want to fight for a leader if I'm not going to become the leader? Why would I fight for a party if I'm not going to become the leader? Why would I fight for a flag if I'm not going to survive to see the flag? So people fought for the prospect of a better life.
for sure. So if you look at
So
that,
if you don't deliver a better life, you essentially have betrayed the people who fought. And that's where we're going with Mugabe. We're running the country, restoring it to the old Stone Age, which meant that the revolution was going to abort. We were real faced with the prospect of the abortion of the revolution. And that's why Mnangagwa comes in. He says, no. He comes like Deng Xiaoping. We have to have a modus vivendi. You see, America knew the importance of capital, sanctions Zimbabwe, ostracizes it, so that there's a premium against capital coming into Zimbabwe. Then you compound the sin imposed upon you by America by making capital even more averse to your country by saying indigenization. What Mnangagwa, you do twice. What Mnangagwa then says, they've given us sanctions. We put a premium on business coming to Zimbabwe. That's why he says you can come and own 100% of a company. That's why the economy comes back, because capital begins to say, in Zimbabwe, you can earn a premium.
But Deng's one thing that he did with Kissinger was to open the American market for China.
Tired of seeing a blurred reality? Try these self-adjustable glasses that are taking the world by...
Sorry about that. That is the explanation that Mnangagwa was trying to give over the economic strategy of 2017. That strategy, if the truth be said, did not work. If Zimbabwe is open for business, delivered economic prosperity as Mnangagwa would want us to believe, then where is the economic prosperity? When Mugabe declared Zimbabwe is open for business, he actually believed that he was opening the floodgates of investors. The coup happened in November 2017. And by January that year, Mnangagwa took a high-powered delegation to Davos in Switzerland, Economic Forum, where he was absolutely certain that he was going to sell to the world that Zimbabwe is open for business, and what will follow is a flood of investors coming into Zimbabwe. We know that that did not happen. Investors are a shrewd lot. They were not going to be fooled by the musical chair dance that had taken place in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was a pariah state. The military coup only resulted in the replacement of one dictator with another. Nothing else changed. So to pretend that somehow that change alone, Mnangagwa coming into office, had opened up the economy, is nonsensical. In this interview, our friend Mnangagwa goes to town explaining how Mnangagwa's intellectual capacity helped him come up with the good policies that have revived Zimbabwe's economy. The truth of the matter is, the so-called economic recovery of Zimbabwe, the so-called Vision 2030 is nothing more than, at best, a mirage by moonlight. Zimbabwe's economy is not going to revive. And the main reason for it is because the international community, the investors, were not fooled by the promise that things will change when they can see with their own eyes that nothing had changed, and that nothing was likely to change, because Zimbabwe was still a de facto one-party state, a pariah state, where corruption was to become rampant. So our friend here is praising Mnangagwa to the high heavens for his intellectual and strategic abilities. That is just a lie. Mnangagwa is not an intellectual. Mnangagwa is a buffoon, corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical buffoon. And right now, he is hanging on to power, desperate, because he doesn't want to be held to account for what he and his fellows Zanu-PF have done. And that is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. I do apologize for having to interrupt the last video clip because the advert was coming up. But that is what is happening in Zimbabwe. And if we want to be honest, Zimbabwe is a pariah state. And this idea that somehow the Second Republic is going to turn the country's fortune and make it prosperous again is just naive and, to be quite honest, stupid. Mtsvangwa is trying to portray Mnangagwa as an intellectual, a strategist. That is just nonsense. Mnangagwa is a corrupt, incompetent, and murderous tyrant. History will note him to be that and nothing more. Thank you very much, those of you who were able to join. I would like to give a part 2 to this issue, where I talk to specifically the issue of the politics. Because Mtsvangwa in this interview also talked to great length praising Mnangagwa's political ability, notably what he did in the 2008 elections. I'll have to cover that in part 2 on this broadcast. Thank you very much, those who were able to join, and have a good night.